Hey folks, we have just opened up today's special update. I am going to get this going on Facebook Live and then we'll get started in the next minute or so. But thank you so much for joining us today. We'll get started very soon. Again, for everyone just joining us, we are getting this going on Facebook Live and we'll get started with today's special update in just a minute. All right, friends, I think we are officially live on Facebook. We are live in today's webinar for our special update. Thank you, everyone who is tuning in via Zoom, via Facebook Live for today's special update. Today is October 5th, and we are still counting households for the 2020 census. Today is a great day to be counted. We'll talk a little bit today, and by a little bit, I mean a lot of it today, about what is going on with the deadline for the 2020 census, what's going on with the courts. In addition to that, we have some really fun get out the count images and graphics we'll share with you. And then we also have some messaging for you all as well. If you have been tuning into these special updates, especially if you joined us last week on Thursday, there is new information, but I did just want to include a comprehensive kind of slide deck of everything that has been happening with the 2020 census the past few weeks. So with that, apologies if things are a little bit repetitive, but again, wanted to have folks that are new to this information up to speed on everything that's happening. And of course, at any time, if anyone does have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to use the chat box or the Q&A box on Zoom. If you're tuning in via Facebook Live, you can also use the comment section there as well. And then my big disclaimer, and this has been my disclaimer for the entirety of these special updates, is this is a developing story. And so I wish I could give you definites today. Unfortunately, we're still not in a place to be able to do that. So have a little grace for me as we go through this presentation. Ask your questions if you do have any. If you have more information, please feel free to share and clarify out as well. But with that, again, my name is Katie Martin Lightfoot. I work for Every Texan, and I'm the Census Community Engagement Coordinator. I'm also joined by my amazing intern, Jamie. She is going to be going over GOTC efforts towards the end of today's call. But with that, let's go ahead and dig in. So this slide made me laugh a little bit this morning because there has just been so many changes with the 2020 census. And so between about September 25th and October 1st, I was like, oh my gosh, we've had this information for so long. And so now I am affectionately calling it the history in terms of what has been going on the past few weeks with the 2020 census. So as a reminder, on September 25th, a federal judge in California, Judge Koh, said that the census counting needed to be extended through October 31st. With that, the Census Bureau said, okay, we hear you, we see you, we're going to have to update. At the time, she did not specify a new operational plan or schedule. with that announcement, that court order coming from Judge Koh, the Trump administration wanted to appeal this decision to the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court. Remember this because we're going to be talking again about the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court today. So again, the Trump administration said if Judge Koh did not temporarily suspend the order, again, they were going to be taking it to the next level, which would be the Ninth Circuit Court. And with that, again, Judge Koh was like, nope, we're going to deny that request to temporarily suspend the order. And so at that time, on September 26th, the Trump administration formally asked the Ninth Circuit Court to suspend her court order, AKA they did not want the October 31st deadline moving forward. Fast forward to, I believe it was that same day. At the time, the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court said that they were rejecting the Trump administration's request to set aside her court order. There's an article about that. And so after that decision, the Census Bureau had to continue counting as ordered by Judge Koh, AKA that October 31st deadline. Then, while this was happening, the Census Bureau says they were going to conclude counting today. Thankfully, we know that is no longer the case, that we are moving past the October 5th deadline, but on September 28th, the Secretary of Commerce did announce the target date for counting was going to be October 5th. With that, Judge Koh was like, oh, I think this is going to violate my order. This is doing exactly what I told them not to do. So last Friday, they had a hearing. And with that, again, just as a reminder, and this is going a little bit more into the weeds, specifically why Judge Koh said they were in violation of her order. I just wanted to include these so you had that information. And then as of last week, this time, which was last Thursday, the count still remained uncertain. We didn't quite know what Judge Koh was going to say. And at that time, and still at this time, Texas Counts was not going to commit to a specific deadline for the 2020 census timeline. So that was what happened last week. I breezed through that very quickly because I think everyone is kind of up to speed in terms of where we're at as of today, or as of this weekend. And so now we're going to flip the script and talk about what's going on right now. I am going to pause to see if we do have any questions or comments. Not seeing any, so we're going to continue on with this story. So on October 2nd, Judge Koh clarifies her court order with the October 31st deadline. So she, again, just reiterating the fact that October 31st is the deadline for counting for the 2020 census. I pulled this directly from Beth Link from Census Counts. This is key excerpts specifically from that ruling. If you are curious and getting into a little bit more of that legal language, this just clarifies again the scope of her court's injunction order and just exactly what she's ordering the Census Bureau to do. I'm not going to go through this because it's a little bit into the weeds, but I did want to include it in the deck for everyone tuning in. In addition to that, of course, our best friend, Hansi Lowe, wrote an article about this on October 3rd, just going into a little bit more details about the judge's decision and what the implications are of her decision for the 2020 census. Moving right along, on October 2nd, the Bureau sent a text message out to employees confirming the 2020 census data collection operations would continue through October 31st, and their October 5th date, aka today, is no longer operative, meaning that it's no longer a deadline for them. So this was, again, exciting, very promising news. The Census Bureau is putting out this official statement. They've also posted it on their website. I've linked it here if you want to see it, but it's pretty short. It's this little quick little message right here coming directly from the Census Bureau. And so again, with this, the Census Bureau is stating that data collection operations will continue through, apologies, October 31st. I should not say 21st. Apologies on that. Typo on my part. But even though the Census Bureau is stating publicly on their website that the operations will continue through October 31st, do know that this is not over yet. We still cannot confirm the October 31st deadline. So happening right now, again, I told you to remember the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. They're having a hearing today about the Trump administration's request to suspend the court order. And so it's happening as we speak right now. So I don't have the latest in terms of what's happening, but they are looking more into the Trump administration's request to suspend the lower court ruling that's going to extend our counting through October 31st. So again, a quick reminder on that. We did this last week. They did kind of that preliminary check in terms of whether or not they were going to look a little bit deeper into this. The article is linked here. I think this direct quote coming from Beth Link is super helpful. She shares the Ninth Circuit is already considering the government's motion to stay the preliminary injunction and has already issued a favorable opinion last week denying the government's request for an administrative stay. And so one thing to note here that there are two different kinds of stays. And so even though they made that decision last week, we're still waiting to hear what they're going to say from today's hearing. So again, this is kind of that nebulous region where we don't exactly know what's going on with the 2020 census deadline. The one thing that we know for certain today is that folks can still be counted on the 2020 census. So even if the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court does reject the Trump administration's request again, do know that the Trump administration is ready to go to the Supreme Court. So with this, again, directly taking a screenshot from Hansi Lo, the Trump administration stated, if necessary, it intends to ask the Supreme Court to suspend U.S. District Judge Lucy Koh's order extending the 2020 census counting through October 31st. So again, depending on kind of how the court hearings go today with the Ninth District Court, the Trump administration is ready to take this to kind of that next final level in terms of the count in terms of the 2020 census count. So with that, there's probably some, more confusion, more questions. Hansi Lo did a great interview this past weekend, just clarifying some things. And I pulled out a couple of his responses just because I think they can kind of help us better understand what is going on. So first and foremost, where are we now with the end for the 2020 census? So right now, for now, October 31st is the deadline. But again, the order has been appealed to the Ninth Circuit, which is set for the hearing today, and the Trump administration is ready to go to the Supreme Court. In addition to that, another kind of follow-up question is what could happen if the Trump administration decides to stop following the court order to keep counting? The administration could be sanctioned or held in contempt of court. And then exactly what does it mean if we do have more weeks of counting for the 2020 census? I know many of us have been doing this work for a really, really long time, and we know it's like that just means we can keep engaging our communities and reminding them to respond. But that also means that our door knocking operation by the Census Bureau can continue, so we can continue reaching those hard to count communities, those undercounted communities, just to make sure again that they're receiving that funding, that representation, and the information they need to thrive. So we as Census Champions, as advocates, I know we are tired and we've been in this work for a really long time, but we also understand how important it is if we can continue this count for the remainder of the month of October. And so if you have kind of zoned out because I've been talking too much about the court proceedings and what's going on with the 2020 census, if you get anything from today's call, really the big takeaway is the October 31st deadline can still change. It is not set in stone. Even though the Census Bureau has put out statements and there's been conversations around it, again, as Hansi Lo shares, like he is watching what's going to happen with the Ninth Circuit hearing today. I'm doing the same thing, watching what's going on. And then if it does escalate, if the Trump administration doesn't get a favorable ruling from that, they could escalate into a legal fight at the Supreme Court. So again, at the U.S. Supreme Court. So again, we are not out of the woods yet. We cannot confidently say that October 31st is the deadline. So we're still very much in that mode of kind of taking it a few days at a time in terms of when the census count is actually going to end. And I'll pause there to see if we do, again, have any questions clarifying anything that I've shared thus far. Cool. So now what? I've used this slide before. I'm putting it in the deck again because I think it is still very relevant to what's happening. And that is the message that today is still a great day to be counted. Again, we do not know when the count is officially going to end. We're taking it hours at a time, days at a time. It's just, there's a lot of uncertainty with this. But of course, Texas Counts will continue to keep you updated. We'll plan to keep doing these kind of check-in calls just so you do have an opportunity to kind of hear someone explain what's happening. And we're also going to continue sending out our special updates just to kind of compile all that information for you in one place. In addition to that, what should you be doing? Continuing your regularly scheduled census content. Maybe it's not regular since we are in the month of October. You might not have been planning to continue this work. But again, if you are able to continue doing those safe in-person events, if you're able to continue to use your social media, do virtual events. If you can continue keeping that energy around the census, that is wonderful. That is great. Continue it. In addition to that, a really key thing here is to be very urgent in your messaging in terms of not just saying, hey, respond to the 2020 census, encouraging folks to respond today, to have a plan to respond to the 2020 census today, because again, we don't know when it's going to end. And another big takeaway is to make sure we're continuing to elevate self-response and that it's safe, quick, easy, and urgent to respond. We know that the door knocking operations has been rushed. The Census Bureau was trying to fit a 3-month operation into 2 months, and they've been working extremely hard to make sure our communities are counted. But again, that's condensing a lot of work into less time. And so with that, the most accurate data we're going to get from our communities is if folks are self-responding. So again, let's continue reminding our communities the importance of responding by phone, by mail, and online as well. And we do have a question from Maria specifically asking, will the online and census phone numbers be available till October 31st? Yes, folks can still respond through these avenues. Great question, Maria. So with that, again, we can continue pushing self-response. Folks can still self-respond, and the door knocking operation is still going to be continuing. And then last but not least, and again, I say this every time just because I think it is so important, we don't need to share a specific date in terms of when the census is going to end. Really, our message should be around that households should respond right away so their communities don't miss out on that valuable funding, representation, and information for the next decade. So again, we're focusing why the census matters and the urgency around completing it, kind of going back to our bread and butter of the 2020 census, our original messaging. We were trying to encourage, inspire, empower households to respond. Again, think about what that messaging is that's really going to click with folks and what's going to have them respond. We have been asking people to respond to the census since March. It's been a really, really, really long time. And of course, we know that not every Texan household has responded yet. So think about how you can personalize the message. Think about how you can continue getting into those communities that do have that lower self-response rate. We know how important trusted messengers are in this work. And so if we can really think about those trusted messengers, those voices in our community, and how we can really utilize them to have that big impact of encouraging folks to respond to the 2020 census. So again, all of this to say is let's make sure we're still promoting self-response. Let's be urgent in our messaging, meaning let's ask people to respond today, and let's not share a specific deadline because again, we just don't know when this is going to end. If you follow us on social media, you have probably been seeing this graphic posted every day. This is kind of our way of letting you know if the count is continuing. This is the little bit of assurance that we can give you. We try and schedule this going out every morning that the count is continuing. And so if you're waking up and you're just like, are we still doing this today? Hopefully Texas Counts is there in your feed to let you know, yes, today is still a very great day to be counted on the 2020 census. Again, this is just one of the ways that we're trying to continue to keep you updated on the latest information. If you do have any specific suggestions for how we can keep you updated or how you would like to receive this information, again, we have been doing those special newsletter updates. We've been doing these special live census updates, but if there is another way that we can make sure that you feel confident in your census get off the count efforts or what support you need from us, please let me know. You can put it in the chat box right now. Again, we just really want to serve as a resource to everyone as you continue engaging your communities during this time. And then with that, I'm going to switch. If you joined us last Thursday, Genesis, who we all know and love, she's on vacation today, which I'm very happy for her to be able to have that time and space. But I did want to pull together some specific messaging research that her organization, Naleo, did. I'm not going to go through this, but again, this is just really good information about what's really working in terms of engaging communities and how to really get them to respond to the 2020 census. Again, she has a whole slide about steering folks away from the deadline conversation, instead just letting folks know that they can respond online or by calling the phone number. And then again, just some other reminders she has specifically about what's going on in the state of Texas and keeping our eye on field operations. And again, making sure we're promoting self-response in our communities. But really great content. Wanted to make sure you all had this in the deck when we send it out later today. But with that, again, I'm going to pause to see if we have any questions, comments, concerns. And then I'm going to pass it over to Jamie to walk us through some fun Get Out the Count content. All right, Jamie, take it away.
Alrighty. Hi, everyone. Jamie here. And I just wanted to share our new graphics that we've developed. And we kind of just went on a creative graphics craze lately. And so we've really been putting out a lot of graphics for each of you and making sure that we have a lot of, created a lot of Spanish graphics, just because we know that a lot of our community organizers work in Spanish speaking areas. And so we've been working a lot to create graphics for all of you. And so here are just a few of them. And once again, all of the graphics are going to be on our Texas Counts toolkit. And so next slide, please. And just keeping the messaging, once again, like Katie said, making sure that we don't include any of the deadlines and just encouraging people to get counted as soon as possible and encouraging them and reminding them that they can fill out the census still. Next slide, please. And then we just have more graphics and right here. And just one last thing about the graphics is please feel free to utilize them. We make them especially for all of you, and we want y'all to post as many as you can, and especially right social media is one of the fastest ways to reach out to people and one of the easiest ways to reach out to people. And so once again, please take advantage of our graphics. And if you are in need of a specific graphic or a specific type of messaging, please feel to reach out to us and we'll make sure to create those for each of you. And one last thing that I wanted to include is you can always check out Canva. I know we led an outreach event I think last week, 2 weeks ago. And if you're ever interested in learning more about how we create our graphics, and if you are interested in creating graphics, please feel free to check out that webinar that we have. Next slide, please. And switching over to Get Out the Count and Get Out the Vote efforts, today is the last day to register to vote. And so once again, we encourage everyone to use these 3 graphics to combine Get Out the Count and Get Out the Vote messaging today, just because they both play a vital part in our communities. And please feel free to check out the graphics on our toolkit. They're already included there. And next slide, please. And we have a webinar And here you can look at the recordings and the slides here, but the webinar features how to combine get out the count and get out the vote messaging. And so I highly encourage everyone to really take advantage of that webinar today and just look through it and use our messaging in order to really allow everyone to who is eligible to register to vote to register today, because it's just as important as completing the census. And so once again, please use our message. Please combine efforts today if you can in terms of getting out the vote. I think that's it. Please feel to reach out to me or Katie if you have any graphic needs. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Jamie. And yes, happy deadline for voter registration. If you are able to incorporate any get out the vote messaging in your get out the count messaging, that would be amazing and wonderful. Again, we want to make sure that our communities are seen and heard this year. Yes, any graphics that we have in the Texas Counts Toolkit, do know that you can slap your logos on them, put your own messaging on them. We don't care what you do with them as long as you're able to utilize them. Have at it. Put your logos on them, put your messaging on them. So yes, 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 yes. And then with that, I should have warned everyone at the beginning, the top of the call, for these special updates, I don't really anticipate them going over half an hour unless we have lots and lots of questions. At this point in time, I will say, if there are any specific questions about what's going on, we're happy to stay on and answer those. But kind of, again, we're monitoring what's going on with the 9th U.S. District Circuit Court. And of course, if this gets taken to the Supreme Court level, we'll be keeping you posted as well via the special update newsletters. And if it makes sense for us to kind of join together again for one of these live special updates, again, very happy to host these for you and provide this information as well. And then with that, again, I'm going to pause for if anyone does have any questions, comments, or concerns before we wrap up today's call. And then hopefully we'll continue this count on Monday, or by Monday, we'll plan to do another census counts update call with our friends, Dr. Lila Valencia and Genesis on Monday. And then with that, let me see if I have anything else. Oh, that's my last slide.
Hi, Katie. I have a question here on Facebook.
Yes.
And Francisco is asking if we know anything about what total enumeration is, considering that NERFU is no longer happening, I believe. And
so sorry, sounds like the question is what the total enumeration is. So I didn't pull the numbers today, but I'm happy to share those out. From my understanding, non-response follow-up, so the door knocking operation should still be continuing. With the Census Bureau's latest update, and from what I understand from Hansi Lowe, the door knocking operation is going to be continuing. And so again, for our total enumeration, we're not quite exactly where we would like to be with that. There are still a lot of households who have not been counted. And just as a reminder, even with that total enumeration, it doesn't necessarily mean that a household was actually counted. It means that those households were attempted to be counted. And so what that means is that a proxy or maybe a neighbor or a landlord could have responded on behalf of a household. It means that a Census Bureau enumerator might have visited the household a certain number of times and realized that they weren't able to contact anyone, so they've marked that household as resolved. So again, as census advocates and champions, we want to make sure that we are really continuing to push self-response, just because that's the way we're going to be getting the most accurate data. And if I do see any more specifics about census operations and what those are going to look like moving forward, we'll be sure to include those in our follow-up to this call, in addition to our special newsletters that we've been sending out, our little blasts that we've been sending out as well. I hope that helps answer your question a little bit.
Yes, and I think we'll reach out to Francisco individually just because he has more questions about specific data, and we can get support from Lila with that. But thank you, Katie. That's all the questions from Facebook.
Thanks, Jamie. Well, again, thank you everyone for joining us for today's special update. Again, wanted to keep it brief, give you the facts and information. We'll be sending these decks out as soon as possible, just so you do have the information in your inbox. You can share it out with folks. And I also really quickly want to say a big thank you to Jamie. Today is actually her last week working on the Texas Counts campaign. She is going to be graduating from the University of Texas at Austin this fall, and she is wrapping up her thesis. So just wanted to take a brief moment and just give her a big shout out. Big thank you for all the work she's done on the campaign. I know many of you have been I know she's done lots of presentations, and she's been so great with our graphics, and she is kind of the mastermind behind our social media postings. So thank you, Jamie, for all of the support that you've given the campaign. And with that, we will go ahead and end today's update call, and we will be in touch soon, everyone. Thank you so much. Happy counting, and stay safe out there.